Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Swarthmore Borough Council's work session. This is Monday, May 5th, 2025. We're going to start with roll call. Ms. McCahill?
Here.
Ms. Seymour?
Here.
Ms.
Here.
Ms. McLeod?
Here.
Mr. Therian?
Here.
Ms. Garland?
Here.
Mr. Boonen?
Here.
Mayor Spiegel?
Here.
Manager Webb?
Here.
Solicitor Scott?
Here.
Okay, let me start this meeting by saying discussion about Cunningham Field will not happen this evening. This whole matter is being sent back to committee to work on it, to bring in all the voices, to make a better proposal. So if you're here to talk about that, you can stay, but you can say what you want, but the matter will not be discussed by council this evening. This is going back to committee.
And we meet, ma'am,
You may.
and we meet the third Thursday monthly, so in the month of May. That's Thursday, May 15th, and we meet at 7 p.m. here in this room, and we have a Teams link, which is like watching on TV, if your TV is down the hallway. So you can listen in that way, but kindly come on the 15th if you like.
There's a lot of work to do, so it's better to have this in committee, so that is where it's going. Okay, we're going to move on now. We're going to conduct something called a TEFRA hearing, and I'm going to read a script because I was given a script. We will now conduct a TEFRA hearing in connection with proposed financing by Swarthmore College. This proposed financing is in no way connected to a proposal to redevelop Cunningham Field. It is related to work on Martin Hall, the Swarthmore College Science Building. The college is requesting that Swarthmore Borough Authority issue bonds to refund all, is it fund or refund?
Refund.
Refund all or a portion of its outstanding 2015 bonds and to fund a proposed plan to finance what they will describe in a few minutes. TEFRA stands for Tax, Equity, and Fiscal Responsibility Act. It is the federal law that governs the public approval of tax-exempt financing for certain types of bonds, including bonds issued on behalf of an organization described under Section 501c3, such as Swarthmore College. TEFRA requires a hearing providing a reasonable opportunity for interested individuals to express their views orally or in writing on the proposed issue of bonds and the location and nature of the proposed project to be financed. Notice of this hearing was published in a newspaper of general circulation at least 7 days prior to this hearing, and that's the Swarthmorean, on April 25th, 2025, and posted on the borough's website on that date as well. We have representatives of the college with us this evening to discuss the proposed projects, and then we will take public comment on that matter only. At this time, and then we'll go into regular public comment, so don't worry about that. At this time, I would like to ask Robert Goldberg, Vice President for Finance and Administration, and Alice Tuberville, Associate Vice President for Finance and Assistant Treasurer of Swarthmore College, to discuss the college plans.
Thank you very much. Hope everyone can hear me. Good evening to you all. It's great to be with you tonight. I am Rob Goldberg, Vice President for Finance and Administration at Swarthmore College, and I'll provide a brief overview of the projects we plan to fund with the 2025 bonds. The 2025 bonds total approximately $150 million for ongoing projects over the next 3 years. These projects have been approved by the Swarthmore Board of Managers as part of the college's capital plan. As part of the debt issuance, we will also refinance a portion of our 2015 bonds. The first major project is a complete renovation of Martin Hall, the former home of the biology department. Following the opening of the Maxine Frank Singer Hall, the Board of Managers approved a plan in the spring of 2022 to repurpose Martin Hall. The 2025 bonds include $10 million to complete this project. The renovated building will be the home of the Department of Computer Science, a rapidly expanding major, the Department of Film and Media Studies, and the Campus Media Center. We are in the final stages of completing the renovation, and the building is scheduled to open this summer in time for the fall 2025 semester. $55 million of the 2025 bonds will fund a multi-year campus renewal program approved by the Board of Managers to address maintenance needs on a number of buildings. Since 2022, the board has authorized 26 projects in buildings across campus, 13 of these projects have already been completed and 13 are underway. In the near term, the following campus buildings are slated for renovation: 3 residence halls, Wharton Hall, Woolman House, and David Kemp Hall; 3 administrative and student buildings, Ben West House, our service building, and Robinson House; 2 athletic facilities, Ware Pool and the Mullen Tennis Center; and 1 academic building, Colbert Hall. Next, we plan to allocate $67 million of the 2025 bonds for the Geo-Exchange System Phase 5, which is to complete the well field on Parish Lawn and expand the central plant capacity. These funds will also support further distribution connections to the east and south sides of campus and complete more building connections to the system. Last November, we placed the Geo-Exchange System in service, connecting 6 buildings on campus, including the dining and community commons, and we are bringing more buildings online this spring. Finally, $15 million of the 2025 bonds will fund other smaller renovation projects that are part of the college's annual capital plan, approximately $5 million each year. As always, we appreciate the longstanding support of the Borough Council and the Swarthmore Borough Authority, and we're happy to take any questions you may have on the projects funded with the 2025 bonds. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to now open it up for public comment on this matter only. So if you have a public comment to make about the bond matter, please come up, state your name, your address, and make your comment. Public comment, going once, twice? Okay, no public comment. So we are not going to deliberate on this tonight. We are going to make a vote on this next week. I guess that's it, right? And Steve, do you have anything you need to say, you want to say?
May I have one
You may, please
statement?
come up to
Thanks.
the microphone.
It went so well, I hate to
Claudia.
interrupt, but I just wanted to...
This is Steve Goldfield. And
Yeah, my name
your-
is Steve Goldfield. I'm the solicitor for the Swarthmore Borough Authority. And I wanted to let the newer members know, the members who have been on for a couple of years already know this, but it's very clear in all the bond documents and the prospectus in the bonds themselves that these are limited obligations of the authority and that they're not liabilities of the borough. They don't pledge the full faith, credit, and taxing power of the borough. And they're never to be deemed obligations. Revenues that are paid to a trustee on behalf of the college. The second thing I wanted to say, and I'll conclude with this, is that we are going to be coming back in June with a request to extend the corporate existence of the Borough Authority. It has 31 years of life left, and usually municipal bonds are 30 years. So within a year, the next time the college would want to come back, we'd have to extend the corporate existence. The authority is going to meet May 20th. And at that meeting, we're going to adopt a resolution, and we're going to come back and ask you to extend the life of the Borough Authority. So with that, I'll take any questions, but thank you all very much.
Any questions? Okay, thank you to the college. Thank you, Steve, and we'll close this hearing. Thank you, everybody. Do we want a transition time, or are you guys going to hang out, or?
I'm going to hang out.
You're gonna okay, please hang out. Okay. We are going to return to the regular business of the evening. Public comment. Let's start with public comment. Please come up to the microphone, state your name, your address, and kindly keep your comment to 3 minutes.
But Walker wanted to say something regarding Cunningham Field.
Can we get your name and address?
My name is Walker Lewis, and I live on 301 College Avenue. Hi, my name is Walker Lewis. I live on 301 College Avenue, and I am 9 years old. I live right across the street from Cunningham Field, and I am here tonight to ask you to please stop Swarthmore College from putting the stadium lights on the field. This winter, the Sports League closed their field, which is over half a mile away from my house. Even though it made it hard for me to fall asleep, the lights through my window made me feel like it was daytime. Even when it was really late, I was tired at school, and it made me hard for me to focus and do my best. Now the college wants to put lights across the street where I sleep, they say the lights will not be a problem, but that's just not true. I've already seen what faraway lights can do to these. Will be much closer. See the bright light every night. It's going to affect my sleep, my schoolwork, and even how I grow. Kids like me need good sleep to stay healthy and smart. You, our borough council, are the ones who are supposed to protect us. That's a rule. There's a rule that says the stadium lights should be at least 1,200 feet away from homes. That rule exists for a reason. Please do not let the college break the rules because they want to. I'm just a kid, but I'm asking you to do the right thing and keep the lights away from our neighborhood and help us sleep in the dark like we're supposed to. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I'll just give,
Can you talk into the microphone, sir?
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll just give my 3-minute public comment.
Could you
So-
would you mind stating your name?
Good evening, my name is Stuart Lewis. I live at 301 College Avenue.
Thank you.
I live directly across the street from Cunningham Field. And I'm here tonight not just as a neighbor, but as a father. Got the 4 kids over there. Let me be blunt. What Swarthmore College is trying to do here is dishonest, harmful, and frankly a disgrace to this community. They are lying to your face and mine. They paraded around a so-called landscape architect who has nothing meaningful to say about the environmental and community impacts of stadium lights. Their so-called town hall was a scripted PR stunt where residents were spoken at, not with. And their lighting expert, give me a break, he's just a salesman. Not a doctor, not an engineer, a salesman that's going to say whatever he needs to say to get the sale. So let's just talk a little bit about the truth. The American Medical Association, the actual experts having issues, multiple advisories about the healthy effects of blue, rich, white light, especially on children. Exposing to this kind of artificial light at night disrupts circadian rhythm, suppresses melatonin, interferes with sleep, and causes long-term harm to physical and mental health. That's the AMA's words, not mine. As you heard from my son, what he was referencing was there was a snow event, and the snow just casted such a huge halo of light from Closier all the way to our house. I videotaped it. Shockingly, no kids were on the field at the stadium that is lit, and that's pretty, like, a lot of times it's like that. But let's be honest, Swarthmore College, they don't care about the children, our homes, the community. They care about money, prestige, and checking boxes to keep up with other schools. I'm asking the Borough Council to really look hard into this and hold the 1,200 feet. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, come up.
Hi, my name is Andy Fike. I have the responsibility for facilities, operations, and capital planning at Swarthmore College. And I have a just very brief remark. I just wanted to thank anyone who came out to the town hall last week and offered feedback and talked with the various subject matter experts that were invited by the college to come and talk about certain aspects of the proposed project at Cunningham Park. And I think even though there was time for question and answers and the subject matter experts stayed until the very end, until everybody had asked their questions, it was evident that there was a more fulsome presentation needed about lighting, and also there were a lot of questions about sound and sound travel and sound system that were asked in advance of the design being done, and so there needs to be more conversation presentation regarding sound system once it's designed and there's more substantive responses. So we're committed to doing that, and that's just what I wanted to come here and say tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Who else for public comment?
My name is Tom Lee. I live at 29 College Avenue. I've lived in Swarthmore for 36 years, and I have lived happily in those 36 years without lights and sound at Cunningham Field. I am happy to hear that the borough, the council is sending it back to committee because I think there has been an inadequate opportunity for those of us who are concerned and directly impacted by this project to have input into the process. So I applaud that. I would remind everyone that there is an existing ordinance. We're not writing on a clean slate here. My understanding is that an ordinance that requires 1,200 feet distance was passed in response to the lights being put up at Clothier Field. And the college, at least to my knowledge, is now proposing that that be reduced to 200 feet, which is 1/6 of the prior standard. I think that that's a very, very heavy burden for the college. And I dare say that none of us would want to have a tower with lights bright enough to light a playing field 200 feet from our front door. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hi, I'm Beth Carruthers. I live at 301 Dartmouth. I attended town hall. I had an opportunity to ask questions, but I just want to put out there, hopefully somebody will capture it for the college. When they presented the new revised plan, they described the southern border as being the SEPTA tracts, and I just want to call out that on the other side of the SEPTA tracts is an entire row of apartment buildings and single-family residences, so it's not just a railroad track. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else for public comment? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Pam Bartholomew. I live at 308 Maple Avenue, which is one house off of College Avenue. At the town hall that I attended last week, I asked a representative of the college who I happen to have known and met when I was president of the board of the co-op many years ago, and I asked him directly that if this variance was not granted for their lights, would the fields be developed anyway? And he said yes, and then quickly talked about how important the lights were. But I would like to say that when I worked with the college as the co-op president, I was very surprised and heartened at how important a vital town was to the college. Everything from supporting restaurants and co-ops and everything about a vital town helps the college attract students and parents there. So I think we're in a position now where Cunningham Field will be developed with or without the lights because it is actually in the interest of the college. I think this is not an all or nothing decision the Borough Council has to make. It doesn't fall apart if you don't grant the lighting variance. I think you have the ability to do your job and protect the residential area of the residential neighborhood while still letting the college get most of what it wants. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Public comment? Who else?
Go ahead. Are you going? You can go ahead. I'm sorry.
Why are you apologizing?
I can't keep quiet. Dorothy Lee, 305 Chestnut Avenue, 4 houses away from College Avenue and Cunningham Field. I was interested that what you heard the most from the town hall the other night was about lights and sound, which certainly matters. But a piece that keeps sliding under is the parking situation. And when I asked the guy about parking, he told me that you had the SEPTA lot area, but to my knowledge, that's filled with student cars, which I said to him, and he said, well, we'll move them onto campus. I was one of the last house mothers on Swarthmore's campus in mid-1970s. And then the college was working to keep cars off the campus. Now, the only way you can get on campus is to park or drive around the perimeter. So where you're going to put the student cars that are in the SEPTA lot that you had to build because the students were parking in front of my house before that, and probably all the people on College and Maple and Princeton, you're not dealing with team buses for the tournaments that you're going to have at your little Wimbledon. You're not dealing with all the parents that are going to be coming to see their kids play tennis or hockey. I don't know where they're going to park, but it's not going to be in front of my house. And the college, whether it's aesthetically pleasing or not, on your beautiful campus that I love, you got to figure out where you're going to park if you make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else for public comment? And please direct your comments to council. Don't point anybody out in the audience who's just here like you are to observe.
Hi, Robin Schaufler, 21 Oberlin Avenue, which is south of the tracks and more like offset, like behind SRS. And I'm really confused because on the one hand, I keep seeing this opportunity site with residential development inside the area that is owned by the college, that the college wants to develop into athletic fields. And like, I spoke to Andy Fike right there at the the open house that nobody experienced as being an open house. But I did manage to speak to Andy and asked, is there some kind of a handshake deal or something between the college and SEPTA in order to do this thing? And he said, oh, no, we only just found out about this, and like we barely begun to even talk to SEPTA. And the whole thing makes no sense to me. Like when I look at the map that the college produced for what they want to do with Cunningham Field, like that opportunity site just cuts it off, like right in the middle of a field. Like, what are you guys thinking? Like, and also it's zoned institutional B, but you're going to put like 7 stories of residential or mixed use housing in, so you're going to have to rezone. It doesn't make any sense to me that we're actually talking to the college about them doing this magnificent sports complex that's going to hurt the birds, the bats, the bees, the bunnies, and the trees, or we're going to put in 7 stories of residential housing, in the middle of the tennis courts? I don't understand what is being considered or who's talking to whom. It just sounds completely paradoxical to me. I'd love to hear an explanation.
Robin, a comp plan, the whole thing, what comes out of a comp plan is rezoning recommendations. So just keep that in mind. That is townwide. And I'm not asking for you to comment back, but let's stay focused, please. Anyone else for public comment?
Matthew Ruffino, 213 North Princeton. I appreciate the announcement at the beginning, so I'll curb my Cunningham Field comments for the most part. But I can't escape it. I am a little disappointed in the process that's come so far. And when I'm speaking to that, is just looking at the agenda for tonight is what would have been consideration about the draft text amendment from the college to receive comment without starting the official clock. To me, the college is getting advisory opinion after advisory opinion after advisory opinion from you to kick the tires to see what will work. I appreciate even comments from the college that they're going to take it back and think you guys have diverted back to a committee to further talk about this. But the process feels unfair where the college has to get their crap together and put something together and start the clock. There's a process in place. They need to abide by it. And it doesn't feel like it's being abided by when they sort of informally discuss things, show up with an attorney, present information, ask questions, but there's really no proposal on the table to be considered. I don't think any homeowner or any person coming before this board other than the college would have gotten that benefit. I'm new to the community, so I'm making a lot of assumptions here. It struck me as very unfair and probably not compliant with the process that someone would be able to get so many advisory opinions without putting something formally before the board to be considered.
Thank you. Who else for public comment? Is there any, okay.
My name is Linda Houck. I live at 215 Riverview Road, across from Henderson Field. I will also make my comments about development at Cunningham Short, but I am concerned that all of the zoning changes that the college has requested would also apply to Henderson Field. I really don't want big lights. I really appreciate the calm fields that we have at present. It would be really nice if the borough maybe put up some signs, even though not a big fan of signage, reminding people not to idle by that field, because people are doing that more and more because of climate change. I would ask the borough if they are going to consider the Cunningham Field, that they also not just think about lights, but think about the environmental impacts of installing synthetic turf. I think that's a bit of a concern as well. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is I understand on the agenda is a discussion of revision to non-conforming uses with regard to accessory dwelling units. That seems to be on the agenda. I looked at the minutes of the zoning committee and they talk about it in the March, but there's no details about that in their March minutes. They said that they discussed it in their February minutes. The February minutes aren't posted, and there's no language about whatever that revision is. I would also like to observe that almost always when this body talks about auxiliary dwelling units, they talk about it as gentle density. It's not gentle. The auxiliary dwelling unit that is in my neighborhood is not gentle at all. It's got a lot of, like 7 cars are always parked there. The owners of the property have paved over up to the absolute limit of the property. And I think if we looked around at the other houses that have multiple dwellings on them, you'll see the same kind of development. It's not gentle. I would ask Borough Council, if you want it to be gentle, to come up with some guidelines to ensure that. Because when you look at the development on Dartmouth, the house that's a multifamily dwelling, there's a parking lot in the front. Same thing on houses on on Chester Avenue. So that's not gentle to me, and I would like to see you come up with a plan to turn, multiple housing or cutting up houses so that it really is gentle, because it's not as it exists now. Thank you.
Thank you. And ADUs are not on the agenda tonight.
Well, there's a discussion of, let's see. Yeah, it says non-conforming uses, and it talks about that.
It's not on the agenda. Well, don't worry. It's not.
Good.
Allison Maniker, 211 College Avenue, directly opposite Cunningham Field. Lived in Swarthmore 28 years. I'm here, I understand you're moving this back to committee, but I felt like I needed to say this to those who are assembled who are concerned about this issue. Lisa Rieger, who used to be the house parent for the ABC House. I know she sent something to council, but she wanted to be here to read this, and she asked me to. So,
Please, yes.
Lisa Rieger and her husband Andy strongly oppose changing the ordinance that requires lights, such as those at Clothier Field, to be at least 1,200 feet from residences. Lisa writes, "We have first-hand knowledge of living within 200 feet, which was the prior ordinance, of a college field. She lived at the ABC House, 731 Harvard, from the years 2000 to 2017. And during that time, the turf and the lights were installed at Clothier Field." She writes, "The lights at Clothier Field lit up our bedroom and our kitchen. When the lights were installed, the college said they would be turned off by 10 p.m., but this was often not the case. There were often games that went longer than expected, but there were more often practices that went longer as well. Most frustratingly, the lights were left on past 10 p.m. when no one was on the field, and that continues today. The lights and the noise that often accompanied them made it impossible to go to sleep before they were turned off. In addition to the lights, there was a huge increase in the use of Clothier Field once it became a turf field. One of the biggest annoyances, though, was the fact that pre-season for fall sports, which takes place in August, started at 6 a.m. We were regularly awoken by the sound of whistles and players yelling commands to one another. The turf and lights also allowed the administration to allow outside groups to use the field. During the last couple of years that we lived at the ABC House, the college held the Last Chance meet. This meet brought a ton of traffic and never ended by 10 p.m. The college says that they will be good neighbors, but the college administrators are not the people who turn the lights on and off or decide that the practice needs to go a little longer. They can only set the policy. The biggest example of this was on March 16, 2017, when I, Lisa, was awoken by beeping at 11 p.m. and again at 11:50 p.m., plowing the field in the middle of the night. I waited for the beeps to stop, but eventually had to go to the field at midnight to ask the snowplow to stop. I followed up with the college to find out why they were plowing in the middle of the night, and they apologized and said the contractor didn't even know there were houses near the field. Lisa writes, "Looking through my emails to get the date of the snow removal, I found another email where I reached out to the college because in May 2017, sports teams were practicing at 5:30 a.m. during the week with lights, whistles, shouting, and music. The athletic director wrote back to me to say no one was scheduled to be there. I have one.
Go ahead.
The athletic director wrote back to say that no one was scheduled to be on the field at that time. And that is my biggest point. Once the field goes in, students and coaches will use it, and not always at the times and the ways that the administrators anticipated. But the nearby houses will suffer. Period. Thank you. And that's from Lisa Rieger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Fred Dickinson, I'm at 801 Yale Avenue. Just to sort of follow up on what Allison said, I used to be a neighbor in the Cunningham Field area, and we in fact moved to that area from Center City first for the schools, obviously, but next for the crickets. And those are the most important parts of our daily rhythm, particularly in the summer months. When we did move to Strathaven condos, 801 Yale Avenue, I was happy in one sense. It felt like I was on Swarthmore College campus. On the other hand, I was unable to sort of case the territory before we moved to realize that there was the Cunningham Field right there. We moved in 2019, so it's after the lights went in. But I had no idea that there would be the lights and the commotion. I will say we're southeast facing, so we don't see the lights, but we certainly do hear the commotion. And as Allison just said, you cannot predict how long the commotion is going to be. Sometimes I work at the University of Pennsylvania. I come back on SEPTA. Sometimes I come back at 10 or 11, and the lights are on and nobody is there. The lights, again, don't bother me, but I can very well imagine how it would be. It's a shock to the system. Just to repeat what some earlier folks said, I appreciate Swarthmore College. I work at a university. I appreciate the importance of pleasing the faculty and students, but I do really believe it's important to sort of seriously listen to the local constituents and to work out a solution. Thank you very much for doing so.
Thank you. Who else for public comment? James, come on up.
Hi, my name is James Peyton Jones from 211 Rutgers Avenue. So I don't live immediately adjacent to Cunningham Field, but I've been interested to follow some of this discussion. And I must congratulate the college on actually having done a huge amount of research and work on the plan that they put forward, both in terms of consideration of the types of turf, the stormwater and such like. I do think the areas where variances are required, one should look at quite closely, because on the one hand they offer significant benefit to the college, on the other hand, as we've been hearing, they can severely impact neighbours. And in particular, really the turf and lights are all about extending kind of operating hours, right? Extending the operating hours of the business. And it's fairly obvious to see the benefits of that. But one has to weigh it up against, you know, the potential harms and disadvantages. And as I followed the discussion, one of the factors I haven't heard discussed at all is the issue of reflected light. Because the technology is actually quite impressive. You know, the focus is, the amount of direct light received from 200 meters is pretty small. But I think from turf you get about 50% of light is reflected back upward. And if your viewing angle moves further to the side, that amount sort of diminishes to about 12% at 60 degrees and such like. But even if you were to take sort of 5% of the illumination and say, you know, you imagine that actually scattered as light bulbs on the field itself, that's a significant amount of light. So I can quite see how neighbours might be concerned. And when we look at the sort of Clothier Field example, where the athletic pitch is actually recessed with respect to neighbours, you know, they still experience that. And I think it's worth looking at the history of that 1,200 foot ordinance that's in place. As I understand it, and I'm happy to be corrected, but I believe it was put in place in large part because of the impact that neighbours found at that Clothier sort of location. And those are neighbours who are living at 500, 600, 700 and more feet away from the thing. So 200 feet does seem sort of quite small from my perspective. The other sort of technical question I'd like to ask is, I was a little confused about one variance that was asked to do with about 35% of the hardscape. And it seems that the ordinance normally has 12%. So, you know, from what I've heard, they want to, they're saying they don't want to build over more than they need, but perhaps another alternative or a midpoint might be to suggest a slightly smaller building. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Paul Kaywood, Paul Edward Kaywood, live at 323 North Princeton Avenue. Item one, so North Princeton Avenue, we're a block off the Cunningham Field. We hear Ridley High School when they have football games. We hear Strathaven High School, we hear the band when they have football games. We hear Cunningham Field. So everybody here, I don't know where everybody here lives within town, but this is a town issue because it's going to be loud. There's going to be cars, there's going to be people, there'll be cursing. And look, and here's another great example of like not only kids and kids when they act on fields, etc. Lower Merion, they don't have lights on their high school football field, right? So there's a great example. Like all the high school games, everybody's had kids who went through Strathaven, got a Lower Merion football, lacrosse game, soccer game. You got to get there at 4 because they shut it down. I think that's totally a reasonable way to respect it. The lights, the noise in particular, the lights going late would be a concern. The other thing a bit of a rhetorical question here is, I'd ask the committee, how does the borough benefit from the proposed? Is there tax revenue? Last I checked, the college wasn't paying taxes. Is there new jobs going to be brought in? Is there low-income housing, right? Like, that was a big item we've talked about, trying to support housing, age in place. I don't see the benefit to the community. And I would say it is a small 1 square mile community, right? So if we don't ask and answer that question, convincingly answer that question, and offer variances, I think it could be a pretty lonely place to be in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else for public comment? Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? We have another public comment section coming up at the end of this meeting. So if you decide you want to say something, you're welcome to say it then. Okay, we're going to close the public comment section. Thank you all for your input. All right, moving on. So under President, I and Councilman Boonen put together a letter that we are proposing, you all seen the letter we sent to you, that we send to our state legislature asking them to fund SEPTA. And in the letter, we state a bunch of reasons why. I think most of us know why. So I guess we could hold off on, well, does anyone have any comments about the letter? I've gotten input from pretty much everybody. We all had a chance to look at it. So, Bob, should we wait till next week?
I think you can vote on that now.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's a ton of importance on
Yeah,
this.
okay. And the idea is to get signatures from all of the municipalities in Delaware County, so it has a little more punch to it. Can we post the letter so the residents can see it? Does anyone have any comments on the letter? Do you want to make changes to it?
No, just thank you.
Okay, so I guess, do you want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the letter for our borough to sign on, and that we work with our neighboring municipalities to get as many of them to sign on as well, and asking the state to fund SEPTA.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other comments? I'll just note that Bill will work within COG to get the other elected municipalities in some capacity to, I guess, give input, sign the letter, but at a minimum, we'll sign it. It'll come from us, but hopefully we get buy-in from other municipalities. Okay, all in favor of sending this letter to Harrisburg on the funding for SEPTA, requesting the funding for SEPTA, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, good, motion passes. All right, Environment Committee, David.
Environment Committee.
David, turn your microphone on, please. Thank you.
The EAC met last month while the Environment Committee and the Tree Committee did not. The planting at Umaga Park was another big success, thanks to all the volunteers, the EAC, the Bird Town, and our Public Works Department for planting over 100 native plants just a couple of weeks ago. There was also another bird walk just this past weekend, co-led by Bob Scott, our solicitor, a man of many talents. John McKinstry has announced that he'll be stepping aside as co-chair of the EAC after May, and that Hannah Covert has agreed to step up to a leadership role. We thank John for his years of leadership, but I don't believe we need to do anything. Who chairs these committees is up to the committees.
Actually, with the EAC, that's the one where council has to appoint the chair.
Ah.
It's an anomaly, and if we could have you mentioned that, it would have gotten by me. So
Okay.
I'm glad you.
So we'll put it on next week's agenda to approve Hannah as the co-chair with Susie O'Donnell, just by the way. Thank you, Bob.
Sure.
Baird Brown did file exceptions on behalf of the boroughs with the PUC on the ALJ's recommended decision, initial decision regarding our CCA for PA filing. The process continues. Just today, I received copies of the responses to our responses, and any of you who have ever dealt with a PUC know that there are numerous iterations, but the process continues. Lots of upcoming events. Another Free the Trees, cut down that ivy, May 17th from 10 to 12 at the swim club. Come out, bring your cutting tools, bring your gloves. It's fun, it's easy, and you can learn stuff that you can take back to your own home. On May 18th, the EAC will be at the Fun Fair and touting their Leave the Leaves initiative. The tree committee will meet on the 22nd, May 22nd at 7 o'clock, where an ordinance on trees will be considered. It's been an ongoing process. The EAC will meet on May 27th at 7:30, and the Environment Committee will meet on May 28th at 7 o'clock, where I anticipate that we'll be considering the ordinance if it's put forth by the tree committee, and possibly some next steps on zero waste. Jen Pfluger, Bill Webb, and I have been discussing zero waste initiatives. So that's sort of the committee report, and I'd like to deviate for a second to something else. I'm going to stand. If anybody else wants to, they may. I'd like to take a moment to remember our dear friend and Uber volunteer, Carol Bach, who we lost to a long battle with cancer 2 weeks ago. Carol was one of the first people who embraced Joy and me when we moved to this community, as our sons were in the Boy Scouts together, and she quickly recruited us, and she had run for decades. Carol's smile lit up a room, and her tenacity got things done. She was known to her neighbors as the muscle behind the borough's tree sales, and for her involvement with Scott Arboretum, the Community Arts Center of Wallingford. She was an accomplished artist, gardener, and economic development specialist. Carol will be missed. Anyone who knew her was better for the experience. We all feel the loss of her much too premature departure from our midst. There will be a celebration of her life on May 10th at 2 p.m. at the Swarthmore Presbyterian Church. All are invited. Contributions in lieu of flowers to the church, the Arboretum, or art centers were requested by the family. I close with our prayers and thoughts for healing for numerous friends and family, particularly her husband Eric and son Alex, who were so willingly sharing her with our community. And if anybody else has anything else they want to say in Carol's memory, I invite them to do so now. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
And we're blessed with Eric is with us here tonight.
I will say that having known Carol for a number of years, both Linda and I second everything that David said. She was an extraordinary individual. She and Eric.
Turn your microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Do I have to repeat myself?
Yes.
Just that my wife Linda and I knew Carol as well for a number of years, and everything that David said is absolutely spot on in terms of her personality, her perseverance, how much she did for this community, how much she put into every effort that she undertook, and I can't begin to imagine what Eric and Alex are going through right now, but they know that they have our heartfelt sympathies, and we're here for them.
Thanks, Marty. Anything else from environment?
Nothing else from environment. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance, Sydney.
We did cancel the April 28th meeting in favor of having a meeting May 12th at 8:30 a.m. in this room. So just want to be sure that everybody knows that it's a different time. both on day and time of day. This was when experts from the Keystone Group could come and talk to us about their research into earned income taxes, which I approached with trepidation, considering everything that's going on in the world. On the other hand, considering everything that's going on in the world, we need to have another look. So I need to get educated on it, and I think starting with Keystone Group is a good idea. You all are welcome. Public is welcome to come. I anticipate that we will do this, proceed very, very, very carefully. And at this point, information is relevant. That's all I have.
And what was the date and time again?
May 12th at 8:30 a.m. right here.
And if I can add, I thank Cindy for bringing this back up. I mean, there's part of me that says, oh, we're whipping a dead horse. We've gone around this several times, but there was something that surprised me that came out of our comprehensive plan, and it was that over 3,000 people live outside the borough and work inside the borough. And that's a massive potential of revenues from outside the borough that I think we at least need to discuss. So that's sort of a new data point that we stumbled across as part of our comprehensive planning process.
And those of us that pay it to other municipalities, it'll come on.
Right.
You know, I pay to Media Borough, so it'll always come here.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. Jana, General Government.
Yeah. Yes, we did not meet this past month. We will not be meeting this month. However, this coming Wednesday, the 7th, we'll be having our monthly merchant meeting and business district meeting Wednesday at noon. The only other two things to mention, and then I'll pass the baton. We have many, many events coming up in May and June. There's almost too many to even announce. There's several events from Rotary, Swarthmore Town Center, Merchants of Town Center. So I just encourage folks to go on the borough calendar as well as Town Center calendar to review. And finally, for next week, assuming my fellow committee members can review, I will be, if I can add it to the agenda for next week, bringing 2 library board members for consideration as they have a couple vacancies and they're itching for some help. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Jana. Planning and Zoning, Scarlett.
Okay, I've got a whole bunch, but hold on to your seats. So Sarah Kelly, if you want to get on deck. Jill, I think it's most useful to everyone if I make committee report, Sarah makes her presentation, and then we move into the action items. That sound okay?
Sounds great.
Okay, so, all right, so in April, continuing thank you to everybody who was contributors in the planning and zoning activities. Here is your monthly digest in this area of borough life. Planning Commission met 3 times this month. They met on April 2, April 16, and April 30. The reason they're meeting so often is they've begun to prepare and refine recommendations for the comprehensive plan in earnest, and our consulting planner, Sarah Kelly, is with us tonight for that topic as well. The Commission spent a great deal of time and care discussing how to translate the public input from the comp plan outreach that happened from December to February into future land use permissions and other elements of what will become the final plan. So specifically, they've been working through how to respond to broad public support for incremental change to produce a more heterogeneous mix of housing types in the future, which would support community-wide goals like vibrancy in town center, through residential density, like developing the SEPTA and college parking lots, with also looking for small size rental and for purchase home opportunities through restoring non-conforming commercial properties to residential uses, using gentle density permissions, Another strategy is looking closely if and where permissions to subdivide large single-family homes ought to be revised, and also if and where accessory dwelling units ought to be permitted, permissions on the basis of lot size, sight lines, other considerations. So these plans will continue through May and into the summer, especially to incorporate one or more round of public input into the comprehensive plan. And so the final round of public input for the comp plan starts this week. It lasts through the end of the month of May. There is our second and final open house tomorrow night, May 6th from 7 to 8:30 at the PAC Center. All are welcome. And the purpose of that event is to preview and give feedback on draft plan recommendations. The format of the plan will be brief opening remarks from the planner, Sarah, as well as a self-guided poster presentation where those in attendance will be invited to evaluate and comment on the draft plan recommendations.
Guys, will you please let Scarlett give her report? Just thank you.
So the focus of the recommendations tomorrow night, what people will see are ideas about housing, connectivity throughout town, and public amenities, both commercial and non-commercial. For anyone who can't come tomorrow night, an online version of this event will open the following day, Wednesday, May 7th at imagineswarthmore.com. And the website will run with a survey mimicking tomorrow night's event will run through the end of May. So please do participate either of those ways. One last note on the comp plan by way of the committee report. The Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, Citizen Steering Committee, did meet tonight at 5 o'clock, and they were making final preparations for tomorrow night's open house, as well as contributing their own vetting and refining of draft recommendations. So, more on comp plan in a moment from Sarah's progress updates and Q&A with council. But then additionally, last month, the Planning and Zoning Committee of Council met Thursday, April 17. In addition to addressing the comprehensive plan project,
Hey guys, please be respectful of Scarlett. She's very respectful of everybody else.
Saying so. The two things that we worked at last month. One was a decision point before council tonight, so I won't talk about it in depth, but that is looking at ways to encourage non-conforming commercial uses in residential areas to make ordinance changes to encourage them to be restored to residential permissions, residential uses through the permissions that we can leverage as council. So we're going to talk about that more tonight. We're also going, we also had in-depth, open to the public, and participatory conversation about the specific text of the Council Cunningham Park proposal. We had exchange with representatives from facilities, from their legal counsel, as well as their student life department as well. So while council, as Jill announced, will continue those dialogues in committee, I think for tonight, so that kind of ticks off for tonight the topic at the end of this agenda point. Good. Okay, so I think last two things in prepared remarks before our decision points and our presentation. Other things that happened last month. Zoning Hearing Board met on April 22nd, and that was to review a proposal from R.G. Lee for an application seeking permissions related to building a house at 419 North Swarthmore Avenue. That matter was continued by the board, and the continuance is scheduled for continued hearing tomorrow night at 6:30. So that's here in this room, while the comp plan open house is at the PAC Center. And then if needed, this zoning hearing, if it doesn't conclude tomorrow night, then the third night planned for that matter is May 27th. So tomorrow night and May 27th for anyone who's interested in the application at 419 North Swarthmore Avenue. So that means looking ahead, finally, Looking ahead, Planning and Zoning Committee will meet Thursday, May 15th. For those who are interested in the Cunningham Park proposal, please do come and continue the dialogue there. And so, Andy, that's different than when we had held dates imagining this kind of red line conversation in Planning Commission. So the 15th is Planning and Zoning Committee. Also, for any residents who are interested in that colleague, Planning Commission will meet Wednesday, May 21st. That's their regular standing scheduled meeting. And I wouldn't be surprised, although nothing is nailed down just yet, they may seek to put additional meetings on the schedule like they did this month, because they really are working through these comp plan recommendations. So that's the matter before them presently. So just as soon as they get any, if there will be any Planning Commission additional dates, those will get posted online as soon as possible, and certainly within the posting period required of them. Okay, so hi Sarah, welcome back. Before we turn things over to you, any questions or clarifications? Certainly no additions. Right, maybe additions. Okay, good. So thank you for your forbearance, colleagues. Sarah, welcome back. The purpose of Sarah's presentation, when Dave tells us, but not before.
Okay. God, I'm sorry, when you're done.
The purpose of her presentation will be a progress update on the comprehensive plan activities. Where are we relative to the whole scope of the project, as well as continuing to give us the time for Q&A around the draft recommendations. All council colleagues have had those materials in advance, a preview look of tomorrow night's events. So let's use this time while we're face to face with Sarah for whatever is useful to the broader council. Okay, so Sarah, that's you, but Dave is gonna say, hold on.
Okay, so I'm just going to present for 5 to 7 minutes, and I'm going to do it sitting down because the advancer's not working and the camera needs to be able to see. So I apologize for the awkwardness, and once I'm through these very few slides, I will stand up there so I can see you appropriately. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this evening and to hear from you about any preliminary thoughts you have on the direction that we're starting to head with some of the content that we're developing for the plan. This is a really exciting moment because this is the moment when we're turning the corner from listening and all the amazing ideas that we've heard to continuing to listen, but also starting to reflect back some of what we think we've heard from the community and to share some thoughts about what we might put into the plan document so that we can test them out and find out if we're heading in the right direction, if we need to make modifications, if there are things that people say, yes, that should be a top priority, really focus on that, or things that people say, no, I'm not so sure about that. So what I wanted to do very briefly is to give you a process update on where we are, and then talk about some of the materials that we're going to be showing tomorrow night, and that will then be posted online on our website for comment. You have in front of you items that will be presented on large 30 by 40 display boards at our open house tomorrow, relating to some preliminary thinking around some key actions for the plan. Those are our potential recommendations. A draft future character and land use map, which depicts over the next 10 years a vision for what land use and character might look like in the borough. And then finally, some concepts for a focus area, which has been a point of discussion through the process. So I want to just highlight for you what those materials include and give you the chance to share any initial reactions or any comments about the process and where we are. This is just an overview regarding kind of process. That second round of engagement is where we are today. We've had this iterative process between listening to the community, getting feedback, and then having that inform our analysis, getting some more feedback, then having that inform the plan development, and now we're getting some additional feedback before we move into drafting the plan. Scarlett mentioned that Planning Commission will be meeting on the 21st. We know that there most likely will be a meeting of this group on the 18th. It may or may not be, that may not be the adoption date, but it would be when we start to consider, okay, is this a plan that's getting to be something that you would want to adopt? So what we're asking folks to consider as they review materials, and we would ask the same of you all, is, are there things that, you see that you strongly support? Are there things that are unclear or maybe need some elaboration? Are there things that you just disagree with and do think do not belong in this plan and are not the right direction for the borough? And then finally, are there things that are missing? What we're showing tomorrow night is not exhaustive of everything that will go in the plan, but we really are trying to capture some of the key elements of what we've heard. So I'm going to flip through these really quickly because the information that you have provides more detail, and what we're showing tomorrow night provides more detail. But we have 6 goals for the plan. One is around amenities, one is around housing, and under each of these there are some ideas for preliminary recommendations. One is around environment, one is around connectivity, one is around partnership, and one is around inclusivity. So under all of these goals, there are 3 to 5 key recommendations where we provided some context and some explanation of what the recommendations might be. We're going to be asking community members to rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. Do you really strongly agree or disagree? And then importantly, we're going to really emphasize this, tell us why. Because if we just get a whole bunch of disagree, that's not very helpful to us. We really want to uncover the thinking behind people's opinions about these actions. There is a second element of what we're going to be asking folks tomorrow, and what we'd like you all to consider carefully as well, which is our draft future character and land use map. I will say there was a version that went to Planning Commission that looked something like this. We have made, I think, a significant change, which is there is a character type called Town Center Residential Edge, which at that meeting heard from Planning Commission members that there was some concern that this was maybe making people feel that perhaps we were going to be encouraging commercial development in some of the residential areas that are adjacent to town center. It definitely wasn't our intention to do that, but people felt that by taking that town center edge condition, which is supposed to be really about, how do you provide a gateway? How do you recognize a mix of uses, and how do you try to enhance what's already there? That was sort of being misconstrued to signify that we wanted to introduce more commercial into the residential areas, which was not our intention. So for that reason, we did make some changes just in the last, 10 days or so, to pull that edge back and really have it be a much more limited number of sites that are mostly where there's existing multifamily residential, to still try to introduce these ideas about the importance of transition and the opportunities for enhancing the public realm in these areas, but we did push that back significantly. Otherwise, this map is in many places in the borough, in most places in the borough, this is a map about, not about dramatic change, it's about recognizing what people love today about Swarthmore and finding opportunities for enhancing it, whether it be improvements to the walking environment, whether it be other changes to address connectivity issues, whether it be sensitive renovation or rehabilitation of existing property. So most of what is depicted on this map and what's described in our boards is about enhancing what's already there. There are some opportunities, particularly some of these neighborhood residential foresights, which may be a chance for some more significant change. And then, of course, the focus area presents a broader opportunity. This is just showing the 2 maps back side to side, which I can go back to if you want. And then the third element of the plan that we're seeking feedback on tomorrow night has to do with our focus area. And so what we are sharing, and I didn't put a slide together on this, but it's in your packet, there are 10 or 12 principles that we've developed based on what we've heard from the community to try to guide where this area might go. So we're asking folks to tell us, are these principles the same ones that you would like for this area when you look out over the next 10 or more years? And then we have 3, what we've been referring to as sort of the bubble diagrams, which are not development plans, not proposals, not specific ideas for what might happen, but they're concepts that depict the mix of uses, the balance of uses, the way that pedestrians and vehicles might flow through the site, and how the different elements of what might happen in this area might come together. We have tried through all of these concepts to reflect back a lot of what we heard from community members regarding a desire for different types of housing potentially in this area, a desire to provide some community gathering spaces, open space, and potentially commercial or civic uses that might draw people to the site, and a real focus on connectivity and circulation. So we have, 3 different concepts that we'll be asking for the public's opinion on, that we would very much welcome your opinion on, that we'll be sharing. And then finally, we have building typologies, and we're going to be asking community members, when they say there's an interest in housing, what are the types of housing that they think are most appropriate for this site? So we, these ultimately will relate to that bubble diagram, and we'll be able to give more direction for certain types of housing might be more appropriate at different locations, depending on which, if any, of those diagrams that we would proceed with. And we would be bringing those 2 things together in the draft plan document. So in terms of next steps, we are really excited. Tomorrow night we have a lot of folks that have registered who are going to come out. Scarlett mentioned the format's going to be a very brief presentation, but mostly a chance for people to view all of these boards. We have worksheets so they can provide their comments. Every comment's going to go in our database and get themed and summarized. You may have seen the summary report from our first round of engagement. It was something like 14 pages long. We take that part of the work very seriously, and we'll be taking all those comments back. They'll help us inform the draft plan. We have, the plan document is underway, but certainly what we hear is going to help us to shape it and make sure that it is integrating the key ideas that folks come with and share with us. So they'll have a chance to do that in person, they'll have a chance to do that online through the end of the month. We'll go back to Planning Commission, try to take their comments, our steering committee will stay involved, so we're sort of, trying to bring all these different perspectives together at this stage and start to reflect back what we've heard. So it's been really exciting. It's a big task to try to bring all this together. We know 100% of people are not going to be happy with 100% of what's in the plan. That's just not how this works. But we do feel like we've heard some really clear direction about where folks want us to focus and what they want us to prioritize. So we're going to do our best to represent that through this document.
Don't see that on the agenda, but.
So as I knew it, Conlon was getting pricing from some ALS companies to provide ALS. I had met with the company that the county has hired, whose chase car is stationed here in the borough, and they're supposed to put together a proposal for me. They had informed me that they've already signed long-term commitments with City of Chester, as well as VMS, as well as Springfield Township. So once we get these proposals, because what I had said to Shane was that I would want the proposal to begin after their contract ends with the county. I don't want to pay for something while the county is already paying for it.
Well, something that I thought was interesting Colin put together a plan that if in the long term, if we want to, as we're looking at merging firehouses, if we want to look at also putting together our own regional ALS service with Morton and Rutledge and Nether and Swarthmore, that as we're working toward the goal for the regional, then we might as well build out our ALS with these communities. And
Conlon and I had these discussions after we had discussed me approaching Morton and Rutledge about the BLS. That's when everything broke loose with Crozier, and we kind of put those discussions on hold to say, okay, well, if we could outfit our ambulances, which we saw the proposal was, I think, $55,000 to outfit the 2 ambulance units to make them ALS capable, that's the one-time capital side.
Right.
The initial, but we're still gonna have the personnel cost.
We are.
And the all-in cost, then I think.
Which is more the first year.
Right. If we're going to go in that direction, I think that's not something that we want to take on our own. We should be engaging in those conversations with Morton and Rutledge and the Garden City portion of Nether Providence. I would say the same people that are in the Region 4, I think it's Region 4.
Right.
Whatever this VMSC Chase Car is covering, whatever that region is, we should approach those municipalities and say, listen, we can outfit our 2 ambulances, be ALS capable, but we need a commitment that you're willing to be our partner in this.
And I know that Nether is interested. I've talked to Nether. We'd have to reach out to Morton and to Rutledge, but I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I think under this agenda, I think it's fine for us to have this discussion.
Okay.
Because we talked about next steps.
Right, right.
And how does all this hang with the fire company regionalization? Like, can these go together nicely?
That's something that I was asking Colin, because I wasn't sure through this fire study, are they looking at ambulances? And I was told that they're looking at that as well. Colin, do you want to come up here in case we have any questions? Thank you.
I was just wondering whether this sort of moves that discussion up the list of things we need to get done, and these things can go together.
I think they are, they commingle, but they also are looked at independently. And so when we met with the individual that's doing the study, there was discussion about EMS. I think a lot of it is fire-centric, but the EMS component is absolutely a piece of it. It will move forward without the ALS component. With the ALS component, I think it is fairly interdependent. The vital piece is that something has to be done, and there are different options as we've talked about, and it is contracting with an independent agency or the fire department taking on that burden with the borough and the other municipalities' help, but it is vitally important that no municipality does it alone. I'm not denigrating any of the municipalities that have done it alone. They have volume, they have different capabilities and needs than our smaller communities, which is why it's really vital that we work in collaboration.
Thanks.
And these conversations are ongoing, obviously. But I think it's great that the county jumped in and we didn't have an emotional knee-jerk reaction of quickly signing with a vendor, which I can't blame folks for doing, because it's a frightening situation to be in.
I have a question for Colin. So before the Chester closure and all this subsequent disruption, can you tell me what is our base level of Swarthmore ambulance service? We are advanced life support 24/7. We have the one.
So we are a basic life support fire department. We have 2 ambulances that we staff with EMT firefighters. Historically, we had an ALS chase car that was staffed by Crozier Hospital, or a conglomerate. There was 4 different, if we go back, there were 4 different hospitals and 4 different paramedic departments within Crozier Keystone, and they consolidated. But largely speaking, we had a paramedic unit here that was owned by the health system for several years. That went away when the system shut it down 6 years ago, give or take. And then at that time, we were reliant on other units around us, one of them being the one in Springfield, but essentially it's mutual aid, as we've all discussed.
Which is now kind of shifting to fee-for-service, essentially, or kind of this like from the outside looking in, it seems like not at the transaction level, but at the kind of look back, like a financial model that's based on a look back. Last year's service was %, so here's your charge back.
Which is not a requirement, that is a request.
Right, right.
But, yeah, so that is a separate animal that we should probably tackle differently. But operationally, nothing has changed. The resources are what changed, but no matter what 911 is called, an ambulance will come, a paramedic will come if it's warranted based on the requirement within the computer-aided dispatch system. So There's a process in place where you call 911, they ask you a series of questions, and those questions dictate what type of resources that come to your aid. If it's required that a paramedic comes, a paramedic will be sent. It just depends on where it's coming from.
So today and tomorrow, current state service through this bridge is no different than it has been for 6 years.
Correct.
Except where that vehicle is transporting you.
Correct. That is
So
the big
that is different.
And how far and how long it
That's
can take.
right,
yeah,
like that is a material difference right
Absolutely.
now, and a big material difference.
Right, and then also, this was mentioned in the meeting that we had over another, is that I just lost my train of thought, hold on, it's right here, hold on. So, we could do absolutely nothing and just be a freeloader community, and Springfield has to provide service to us because of mutual aid.
I'll give you one caveat. Someone has to provide service.
Right,
not
well, no,
specifically
right, that's right, right, but I'm just
Correct.
saying,
Absolutely
But most
correct.
commonly,
someone
it
has to,
responds to
right,
that.
yeah, someone has to.
But that would increase response times.
Right.
Not just for us,
It's
but
not.
for those other,
It's
any
not.
other impacted community.
Exactly.
Now, I would say that the meeting that we were on with emergency services was that they basically told municipalities, you need to enter into a contract with someone to provide you ALS service.
Right.
Colin, I had one question. In addition to the response time, because it's going to take ambulances potentially longer to get back to station because of the distance to hospitals, if an ambulance gets to an emergency department at a hospital and they are full and can't take a patient right away, what happens to that patient? Do they stay on the ambulance? Does the EMS, the EMTs have to stay with that patient until they're fully through the emergency system?
It's a nuanced answer. So simply put, they stay on our stretcher in the hallway of the hospital. There are federal requirements that say when you are within 500 yards of a hospital, you are the hospital's requirement to take care of. And so once we enter the hospital, it is the hospital's responsibility. However, just like everyone else, they are resource depreciated at the moment. And so if they physically don't have a person to come over and take charge, there will be delays. If you are exceptionally ill, we bring you to the hospital and you need immediate care, they will move heaven and earth, no matter where we go, to make sure that happens, because they have a vested interest in making sure that everyone stays alive. If you are not immediately ill or requiring emergent care, then you will stay with our staff and we will watch you on our stretcher in the hallway of the hospital until a space becomes available.
So, I mean, in addition to travel times, we're also talking, as these hospitals become overwhelmed, which they will, which they are. It's not a when, it's happening now. It's also going to impact how quickly our ambulance gets back to the station.
It already has. I think Kristen brought that up in some of the meetings that we've been in the last week, and there have been a lot. The county EMS office has been able to pull charting data across the county to determine the length of time it takes once you get to the hospital and once you transfer care of the patient to the hospital. The average before the closure, when hospitals were still busy, was about 29 minutes. The week after the closure, it has been 49 minutes plus. So it has essentially doubled. And again, you're in the hospital. If you have an immediate need, you will be cared for. But the amount of time that our staff are waiting to we call offload the patient has essentially doubled in that time. And I want to make sure, and this came up in one of our meetings, we're very cognizant that we don't want the public to be fearful for no reason. An ambulance will come, you will get care if you call 911. People should not ignore symptoms, people should call 911 when there's an emergency. But we are working to, behind the scenes, make sure that we are prepared as this continues to evolve.
Thank you for that disclaimer. I don't mean to be an alarmist.
So how, if at all, does this affect people who are, I don't know what, members or subscribers or whatever you call them to your ambulance services?
It should not affect that. We have agreements. I say should because there's a caveat. We have agreements with the agencies around us, but because of this increased increased offload times at the hospitals and the burden on the system, there are instances where agencies that we have never had in our town are coming into our town, and vice versa. There are towns that we've never been to that we are going to help provide care. So there may be some instances where they may get what we call a balance bill, but if they come to us, work with us, we will work with those entities to get those addressed to the best of our ability. We can't guarantee every entity will agree, but generally speaking, most services in the county understand, have these systems, and are willing to honor each other.
Okay, I guess I'm asking, I mean, you put out a letter, or several letters a year, and one of them asked people to subscribe to the ambulance service as individuals. And I'm asking on behalf of Swarthmorians, who I encourage to subscribe, whether this change in reality is affecting, the service that they provide and that they will receive as subscribers to your.
I apologize if I wasn't clear. Right. That's what I was answering.
Right.
So it shouldn't change it.
Okay.
Because the ambulance services that come in to help service the area if we are encumbered will honor that with us. We honor them and they honor our subscription services.
Okay.
There are small chances that agencies that have never come to our town before, who we don't have an agreement in place with, come in. If they were to bill someone fully and not honor it, if that person comes to the firehouse, addresses it with us so we know about it, we can then work with those agencies that haven't been here before.
Okay, thank you.
So sorry to bring us off track. We are supposed to be discussing the letter that we received from Springfield Ambulance, right? I mean,
We have nothing to answer, nothing to say to them at this.
No, I just want to make sure that no one has any comments on that. It's on the actual agenda.
Because thank you all for just really making it plain. Instead of pursuing by Springfield, now our primary path forward is just, let's bring it home. We're saying is using the county service for the ambulance chase car for these 90 days, then trying to replace that at our own expense. That we find a vendor to do the ALS ambulance chase car after that 90 days ends.
Right. So,
and preferably as a consortium.
So we're looking at, right, we asked Conlon, Marty and I met with Conlon, and he's putting some quotes together so the council can see those. But we also think we can go along, the parallel tracks of getting that South Central Regional Ambulance Service, and then along that same line, we can also start to build out our own ambulance service. And that is with Nether, hopefully, Nether, Morton, and Rutledge.
Can you help me understand the time frame? Because 90 days is going to be here,
right?
And we need to make a decision in advance.
If you're asking, sorry, go ahead, please.
Sure. If you have the timeline, that'd be great.
I can tell you that just based on my experience with running ALS services, I think that the municipalities have 15 to 30 days to make a determination, to then allow whoever they contract with, choose, or fund to build out that service and be ready for the 91st day.
Any other questions for Conlon? Then I can let him go to the back again.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Conlon. We appreciate you. Thanks for everything you're doing on this topic.
Thank you.
We're lucky to have you. Are there any other questions? Not, I'm done.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks.
We are now up to Public Works and Jared's report.
Good evening, everybody. We did not have a meeting in April, as we did not have information on the site plans for Little Crump Creek Park restroom, which is our main point for discussion. So that is being discussed at our upcoming meeting this month. For the rest of our report, I'd just like to make two quick notes. I'd like to thank the EAC and especially John McKinstry for his service to the EAC and for his tactful and successful planning and planting at the Emoja Park for their Phase 3 planting of native plants. And I'd also like to remind everybody that coming up, the second Saturday cleanup in Little Crum Creek Park is going to be on May 10th from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Our next meeting is going to be May 15th at 9 a.m.
Jared, if I can add, I'm not sure if the site plan will be ready yet. I spoke with Eric this morning, and it should be pretty close because they just had the survey crew out to do the existing conditions for the stormwater management work we're going to be doing for the grant that we received at Little Crum Creek Park. Also, on your agenda, we have invited Easy Composting and Mother Harvest to Mother Compost to your meeting to speak.
To discuss composting and composting program. And were composters from the last Umoja planting, phase 2, were those distributed? Because I had a random composter show up on my porch earlier this week.
They were distributed, yes.
Okay, awesome. So those were distributed to those that provided their email.
I received an email from Joan Urban about what a wonderful design it was and how it's going to be so great. So I was very happy to see that.
I'm excited to break mine open then. That's all I have for my committee report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Public comment, part 2. Who's in? Who's out? Who's awake? Robin's awake. Come back.
Just barely awake.
I feel ya.
Robin Schaffler, 21 Oberlin Avenue, and I must commend you all for your stamina. I don't know how you do it. So I want to tie together a couple things that I heard tonight with some ideas. So, like when David talked about the positives of mixed use, what went through my head was that in 1965, yes, because in 1965, if you had allowed mixed use in, say, like along Yale Avenue, a doctor's office would have opened up maybe, and it would have served the local community. Or maybe it would be a coffee shop or a pub that would serve the local community. The trouble is that in 2025, if you opened up a coffee shop, you would have cars coming from everywhere. And if you allowed doctor's offices, well, you would also have to allow an architect's office. It might serve 4 different counties. And, you know, in this day and age when people will get in the car in order to go 1,000 feet, any increase in commercial activity winds up with just outrageous traffic. And I think that's really what concerns people in residential areas, why they don't want commercial, because you know, if you allow any coffee shop at all, you're going to wind up with a Starbucks. So I'd like to see people putting their heads together and thinking about different ways of controlling traffic. And in fact, we could solve some of the problems that we're looking at, maybe, in some with some interesting ways. Like, for example, if along College Avenue and the neighborhood around there, if it was all metered parking, but anybody with a residential pass or their guest passes didn't have to pay the meters, we could conceivably make it painful enough for spectators at Cunningham Park to park in that neighborhood, that people would figure out that, hey, if I want to go to a sporting event, I better take the train instead of drive. or if we controlled the amount of parking available to one of these like fourplexes, a fourplex in the former gas station or whatever. Then you would attract
Robin,
the lower, the
Robin,
lower,
your time is up.
the lower income residents. So you could solve.
Robin, your time is up.
Two things with one's.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Public please. Why not?
I want to.
Is there some rule that you can't speak twice? I'm kidding.
I want a little.
Adjust the
privilege here.
microphone.
I know I'm
Adjust the
old,
microphone.
but I wasn't doing this back in 1965, maybe 1970, but not 1965.
Hello.
Hello, Maverick, 213 North Princeton. You imagine Swarthmore then, back in whenever it was really great. It was kind of like Christmas, JCPenney catalog, making your long list. Kind of what I've heard through the planning commission meetings is that there's unintended consequences and things that people aren't thinking about. Looking at that quick presentation tonight, I think it was called the Chester Annex or something like that, talking about this economic zone. That's going to increase a lot of traffic. Is that going to make a traffic light, another traffic light on Chester Road? Like, will people be so gung-ho about these ideas without knowing the other side? So, very short, is there going to be contrarian out there to the community saying, well, if you want this, this is something else that's going to be. And I'm just looking at you, because
I'm looking at you. You're the contrarian. You should come and be that contrarian.
Well, it ties back to Cunningham Field as well.
Yes.
Because if the college gets what it wants, that's going to bring a lot of traffic in there. And that's going to limit what you're going to be able to do in that free economic zone. So all that nice housing that you're recommending that we do is not going to be practical.
We'll see you tomorrow night. Come on.
No. Cindy said May 12th, right? The earned economic
Well, tomorrow night is the.
No, I know that, but I only have so much time to attend these events.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Where are we? Mr. Mayor.
What time is it?
Wake up.
I just had a couple of things that I wanted to say. One of them was following on what Kristen had already presented regarding the ambulance. And I know that we're going to be taking this up next week regarding a resolution, council resolution, but just to let the public know, on April 22nd, I signed in an emergency declaration when we knew that Crozier, in fact, had officially closed or was officially closing. And it was largely for administrative purposes, not so much to create an emergency action plan, but just to allow the borough and borough council to act nimbly in cases where we needed to take action quickly to ensure the safety of the public relative to ambulance services, relative to healthcare services in light of Chester closing. So what it does, basically, it allows us to operate outside of normal protocols relative to advertising some meetings, spending some funding that needs to be done so that we can do it quickly and respond to needs as they arise. So I know we're going to be talking about this a little bit more next week, so I won't go into detail, but just to let the public know, the declaration of emergency really is not in place to provide an emergency plan as much as it is to provide government's ability to respond to emergencies as they arise. So we'll hope that they don't. We'll hope that there's nothing that needs to be done outside of us all hoping that this thing gets resolved quickly. And the second thing that I just wanted to, I really wanted to give a shout out and commend again, as I often do, our police department and especially Ray. Ray, I'm still out there.
Yes. Pick them up.
As most of you know, we had some police action going on this weekend out of our normal, the normal status of the community. The police were called on Saturday morning to come up to the college to basically disassemble and help to disperse the protesters that were up there. Ray put together in very quick fashion a plan, drawing in officers from other communities to ensure that there were enough police officers there to ensure the safety of all of the protesters and the police officers that were responding. My understanding is there were no injuries. Police acted professionally. I was there in town when they were brought into town. So I really think that we should be incredibly proud of not only how the police acted, but also how Ray was able to respond to this in very quick fashion and put together a strategic plan to ensure that it went well. So I really do appreciate that, and I think he deserves commendation on that. So we'll stay tuned in terms of whether there's any more activity up in the college. As you know, we do not respond until we are invited by the college to respond, which is what happened. And you saw the letter I sent around from President Smith, essentially outlining and detailing all of the activities that led up to the action that she took, unfortunately, had to take. So any other questions, you can either place to me or to Ray or to the college.
That letter was very impactful, and I was wondering whether she would be comfortable with it going to the newspaper, just so people are informed about what actually went down.
It's on their website. If you go onto the college website, if anybody wants to see it, and you have to get into the president's site, and then there's something about activities. I forget how I was able to get it. But it's on there. You have to search a little bit for it, but her statement is there, so it's not hidden from the public. You just have to search for it, and we can certainly ask Anthony.
It sounds like less is on it.
Yeah. Do you know about it?
It'll be on the paper on Friday.
Yeah. So I suspect that it would be fine for that to be disseminated, but that's up to them.
I thank you for finding that and sharing it with us. It really was very helpful. I got some word from the community and all, and I went up and it was just quiet. It was, so a job was done, and it wasn't just instantaneous, it left it quiet for the remainder of the week.
It wasn't quite that quiet in town when this was happening. I mean, we had a little bit of it was disturbing, I'm sure, to a lot of people to see what was going on, but it's part of the process. It was handled well, and we should be proud of how our police responded. So I will leave it there, and thank you all very much.
Thank you, Marty. Borough Manager, Ben.
Sure. So in my conversation with Eric last week, they are ready for us to put out the Henderson Field RFP. So I'm seeking authorization for council to allow Pannoni to post that RFP onto the bid website.
So second.
Oh, we're ready. I missed that was even a motion. I blacked out for a minute there. Any comments or questions about this? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
I have no further, thank you.
All right, Mr. Solicitor.
Thank you, I don't have anything.
All right, motion to adjourn?
Before you adjourn,
Yes.
people were saying, indicating, that we might be treating Swarthmore College in a particular way. And you put out a very thoughtful response to somebody who raised that. I want to commend you for bringing that and explaining to the community or to the individual who brought it up how they can participate in a more formal way if they so wish. And I thank you for that.
Are we adjourned? Good night.